end quote. Here with us now is Andrij Dobriansky, Director of Communications for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America and Chair of the UN Affairs for the Ukrainian World Congress. Andrij, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. This is important, and we've been talking about this for, well, over 3 years now, but I want to talk about the developments this week. What kind of sanctions would bring Russia to the negotiating table?
Well, we know that there are sanctions on the table in terms of the Senate. Senator Blumenthal and Senator Graham have had a package on the table since early this year, and they have over 80 co-sponsors already. So what we're waiting for basically is President Trump to say okay, and those can go forward. In the meantime, the president has full authority with previous legislation dating back to 2014 when the war really started, that he can increase sanctions on a number of ways. Most concretely, his former chief of sanctions put out an article last week at the Hudson Institute naming 9 ways that we can implement sanctions to tighten the noose around Russia.
Former Vice President Mike Pence, he was actually on NewsNation's The Hill yesterday. This was his take.
If we pass those secondary sanctions, Vladimir Putin will understand that we could literally break their economy. And by providing continued military support for Ukraine, that combination of efforts, I think, is the best pathway to peace.
Do you think there's a political will here, Andrij, when it comes to Washington doing what it takes?
Well, we know that in the Senate, we have over 80 sponsors for a bill that would put up to 500% sanctions against Russia. That would pass in an instant, probably not even a vote against it unanimously. In the House, we have a similar bill that would get an easy majority. So the political will exists. It takes, though, the leadership of the White House to do it, and that's what we've been waiting on. Not showing a picture of President Trump and Putin and hailing that as a victory today, but actually moving forward, because we've frankly taken a couple of steps back since Monday.
Yeah, many people have thought that when we saw both men together on the tarmac over the weekend in Alaska. The top diplomat for the European Commission told the BBC that Putin is setting a trap for American negotiators. I want to play a little bit of what he said.
No, this is exactly the trap that Russia wants us to walk into. I mean, the discussion all about what Ukraine should give up, what is the concessions that Ukraine is willing to do, whereas we are forgetting that Russia hasn't made one single concession, and they are the ones who are the aggressor here. You know, if we walk into this trap that we are putting the pressure on Ukraine, what they are willing to give up, then we will see this again, because aggression will pay off.
Zelensky said earlier this week, this is on Monday, when everyone was still a bit optimistic that the sensitive issues here would be land swaps and security guarantees for Ukraine. The Russian foreign minister says they are no closer to having a meeting. So with all that said, what do you think will happen moving forward?
Well, we need to put things together, a full court press. We've been talking about sanctions in this discussion. There needs to be a correlating military package for Ukraine. And then I would also say that the United States need to push forward with war crimes prosecution against Russia, because Putin needs to feel this all over the place. Right now, he's feeling no pressure. And I'd like to point out that we had an American business bombed overnight last night. The American Chamber of Commerce was on the ground in Mukachevo as an American factory that has nothing to do with the war was bombed on the far western border. President Putin is trying to push President Trump and trying to push all of his buttons. And I hope President Trump comes to the Senate and says, we need those sanctions now.
Yeah, the next move is on President Trump. We'll see how it plays out. Andrij Dobriansky, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.